Supplementary question, the Honourable Ms Franks.
Arising from the answer, are any other states or territories not in line with AHPPC advice on this matter?
Minister for Health and Wellbeing.
You can be sure they're not, and I actually think it's reprehensible. Children's education is extremely important. Children should be supported to get an education unless there's strong reasons. Closing schools undoubtedly has an impact on the welfare of children. So I appreciate that. Well, I suppose in a way this report highlights it. In times past, the evidence was not as strong as it is now that schools are safe. We now have increasing evidence that children are less susceptible to COVID-19 than older people. We've got a very low rate of transmission here in South Australia. We've got enhanced processes in schools to clean, to maintain a safe environment. And so I appreciate that in times past, other jurisdictions have chosen not to follow AHPPC advice. I suspect, and don't hold me to this, but my suspicion is that the SA Health, the South Australian jurisdictions, South Australian government's compliance with AHPPC advice in relation to schools is the closest. We align most closely with what's recommended. The hallmark, and the Premier hardly goes a day at the press conferences without highlighting this. The hallmark of the South Australian government's response has been our willingness to act on the science, to act on the evidence, to act on the advice of public health clinicians. We've done that in schools, we've done that in other domains, and it has put this state in a good stead. And let's be clear. The Labor Party and their union mates might try and slur Nicola Spurrier and the evidence in relation to schools, but the people of South Australia are voting with their feet. The people of South Australia are going back to school. This week, the latest figures available to me shows that 69% of students are learning at school. They are throwing back into the faces of the Labor scare campaign that they trust Nicola Spurrier, even if Labor doesn't. They will continue to act on the basis of Nicola Spurrier's advice, whether it's social distancing or personal hygiene or going back to school. They back Nicola Spurrier, so do we.
Further supplementary.
Did not the AHPPC recommend 1.5 metre social distancing for schools?
Wellbeing.
The AHPPC has clarified its advice, and then. No, with all due respect. So I shouldn't let her be disorderly and interject.
Out of order, so continue, Minister, please.
The AHPPC advice is consistently being followed by the South Australian government, including in terms of the conduct of teaching within the school precincts.
Further supplementary question arising from the original answer?
Indeed, arising from the original answer. Does the AHPPC advice recommend that vulnerable workers, those who have comorbidities, who are older or who are Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, not be in the workplace?
Minister for Health and Wellbeing.
The situation of vulnerable teachers, but not only teachers who themselves might have a condition, but also those that are living with people with chronic conditions, is certainly factored into both AHPPC advice and state government policy. And I've specifically heard the Education Minister highlight that that's a factor that they are trying to manage within the schools.
Further supplementary question.
What risk assessments have been done on South Australian schools as per the AHPPC advice?
Minister for Health and Wellbeing.
Happy to get the advice of the Education Minister in that regard, but I would stress that that Nicola Spurrier has been extremely engaged in the strategy to keep schools safe and keep schools open. Nicola Spurrier wrote to parents and to educators last week to reaffirm her scientific view that schools are safe and they should be open. This government strongly backs that advice.
Supplementary.
A further supplementary question, Ms Franks.
Thank you, Mr President. Last term, some workers were vulnerable workers were assessed as staying at home. This term, this week, they've been asked to come into work. What has changed in the last 3 weeks that these workers have now been reassessed as fit to work and safe to work?
Minister for Health and Wellbeing.
I certainly don't know the teachers to whom the honourable member refers, but what I do know is that that's a matter for the Education Minister, and I'll refer that question to him.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition, do you have a further supplementary
Further
question?
supplementary. Thank you, Mr President. Does the minister consider parents who choose to keep their children at home as reprehensible, or is that vicious insult only reserved for decision makers in other states?
Minister for Health and Wellbeing.
Of course, everyone makes a choice as to the schooling they provide their children. Let's be clear, there's a significant cohort of people who adopts homeschooling as their preferred mode of education delivery. But for people to be in the public domain and scurrilously spreading rumours that it's unsafe to send your kids to school is not consistent with the public health advice. And I'd invite the Honourable Tammy Franks and the Honourable Kyan Ma, those who claim that we need to back the science when it comes to climate change. Let's back the science when it comes to public health too.
The Honourable Ms Franks, you have a
Arising
supplementary
from the
question.
original answer, Mr President, supplementary, did the AHPPC take on board the fact that New Zealand's largest cluster is a school, the Marist College, a primary school of 93 and counting cases, teachers, students, parents?
Minister for Health and Wellbeing.
Not aware.
The Honourable Ms Franks, your
Supplementary.
final supplementary question.
Has the Marist
Mr.
College ever been discussed by either the Department for Education or Professor Spurrier with the Minister for Health and Wellbeing?
Minister for Health and Wellbeing, it's not really from the original answer, but you can choose to answer if you wish. The Honourable Ms Franks. The Honourable Ms Franks.
So,
Minister, do you choose to answer? No. Okay. Move on to the Honourable Deputy Leader of the Opposition, the Honourable Claire Scriven.
Thank you, Mr President.
The Honourable Ms Franks, you have a supplementary question arising from the original answer.
what does the Minister for Health and Wellbeing understand of the state of New Zealand and their schools and the situation of the Marist College?
I'm not aware.